Hi, so my name is Jennifer Hitchcock. I'm a professor of English, and this year I'm also the Cecil Faculty Fellow for High Impact Practices. And this presentation is Growth Mindset Part 2. It builds on Part 1, but you don't have to have attended Part 1 to get something out of this and learn more about how to cultivate growth mindset with your students. The QR code here on the left will take you to some resources, including these slides and other resources and research about growth mindset. And of course, you're welcome to pause the recording at any point as you're viewing this. So, some of the purpose and learning outcomes for this presentation include identify principles of growth mindset versus fixed mindset and the benefits of growth mindset for student success, to present and share ideas for how to emphasize growth mindset in course activities and assignments, identify the relationship between growth mindset and metacognition, and discover further resources related to growth mindset and metacognition. So what is growth mindset? It may be something that you've heard of before. Those with a growth mindset believe they can improve their abilities over time through effort and persistence. Research from Carol Dweck from 2006 and others since then shows that students' attitudes about their abilities and intelligence affect their learning and responses to academic challenges. There's a link here also for where you can access further research on the topic of growth mindset. So, how does this relate to our students? Well, with growth mindset, students who think they can increase their abilities and intelligence are more likely to do the following: respond to academic challenges with increased effort, to seek out feedback, and experiment with new strategies for learning. So students with the growth mindset also often set goals for mastering disciplinary content and seek out challenging tasks to help them acquire and develop new skills. I also have a link if you want to find some more resources here. But one thing, that with the growth mindset is students that have a growth mindset are more likely to focus on mastering course content, developing their skills rather than just performance. Okay, focusing just on the grade alone is less of an attribute of students with the growth mindset. They're more interested in mastering the information, knowledge, and skills rather than just getting a grade. This is an infographic that shows some different growth mindset self-talk attitudes, and there's one for every letter of the alphabet. You can also click for an accessible image. These are good, and you can share this with students to kind of give an idea what some of these attitudes are. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there's a few good ones here we can talk about. So for A, attitude and effort determine how much I learn. C, challenges help me grow. G, getting better takes time. The F, I can welcome feedback. Another one I like is the I don't know how to do this yet. And some folks might have seen Carol Dweck had done a TED Talk, The Power of Yet. So emphasizing that just because you don't know something or you can't do something yet, doesn't mean that with some more effort and study and feedback that the student won't be able to master it. So emphasizing that you might not have, done that well on this because you don't know it yet, but you're going to get there to kind of reinforce this idea that the student can acquire those skills, the necessary skills and knowledge. Because ultimately, if a student believes that they can learn and improve their skills and abilities, then they'll be more likely to put the effort in to try to do that. And that's what we want. And the research, again, supports that this does help students learn to have this type of attitude. So in Opposed to a growth mindset, there's also the idea of a fixed mindset. So some of you may have heard that before, growth versus fixed mindset. And what is a fixed mindset exactly? Well, a fixed mindset is described as students who think intelligence and ability are mostly immutable or fixed, are more likely to respond to failures or challenges by disengaging, withdrawing, or continuing with the same learning methods and strategies, even if they're ineffective. Students with a fixed mindset are more likely to choose safe learning experiences and performance to help them validate their intelligence and avoid exposing their failures and deficiencies. So again, they're looking for safe experiences, and they're going to have performance-based goals instead of those mastery goals that you see with a growth mindset. Students and people in general with a fixed mindset tend to get discouraged more easily, and this can lead to behaviors that are not going to help those students learn and master the material. On the contrary, they're more likely to avoid working harder. Instead of working harder to achieve, they might pull back out of fear. This other infographic I like to share with students because it shows some common attitudes of both growth and fixed mindset. Sometimes I talk about these using the analogy of sort of a devil or an angel on your shoulder. And, I also like to acknowledge that while some people might tend towards being more of growth mindset, more optimistic in their abilities to learn, and some may tend towards having more fixed mindset attitudes, we can all have both of these. In fact, you might notice even yourself, even if you believe in the growth mindset, I have, for example, I teach in the humanities. And so it's not that uncommon to hear humanities professors talk about that not being good at math, as if they just don't have the ability to do math. Well, that's a fixed mindset attitude. And I think a lot of, especially in writing, teaching writing and teaching math, we hear that a lot, that a lot of students come to us with this idea that they're just not good at writing, or they just can't do math, as if there's some sort of inborn or genetic ability to write or do math, which is just not how it works. So kind of emphasizing that, also mentioning that there's research, educational research that supports the growth mindset, including neuroscience, such as the notion of neuroplasticity. That supports the idea of a growth mindset, that you can grow and change and build those neural pathways. So sometimes I go over my students with some of these attitudes and ask them to think about when they have a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. So a growth mindset, for example, might have an attitude, I can learn anything I want to. When I'm frustrated, I persevere. I want to challenge myself. When I fail, I learn. Tell me I try hard. If you succeed, I'm inspired. And my effort and attitude determine everything. And you can see how this type of positive self-talk would help motivate a student to try harder, to overcome challenges, obstacles, or failures, and by believing that it's possible. And again, science says it is possible. So, but these myths about abilities being fixed and people either having a talent in a subject area or not are very common. So we really have to, work against that. Common fixed mindset attitude, those negative self-talk. And I say sometimes to students, when you're having a bad day, you might notice hearing more of these voices in your head when you're having a bad day. I'm either good at it or I'm not. When I'm frustrated, I give up. I'm going to make these little X's. I don't like to be challenged. When I fail, I'm no good. Tell me I'm smart. If you succeed, I feel threatened. My abilities determine everything. And you can see how these attitudes, it does become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe you can improve with effort, you're more likely to try harder and to seek out feedback and help. And if you believe you just can't do something because you don't have that innate ability, then why bother trying, right? And so these attitudes really can come into play in determining whether a student is going to reach out for help. So I always encourage students, also my students, I say the number one quality of student success is reaching out when you're confused. Okay, so normally we would have some time for discussion and sharing with participants. And if you're watching this video, you're welcome to pause it and take a few minutes to do your own real reflective activity to think about these questions. So studies have shown that people can have a growth mindset in certain areas, but a more fixed mindset in others. So think about for a minute, what areas do you have a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset? And what about your students? Also think about, briefly explain a time that you struggled with something, but were able to improve with effort. And you can go ahead and pause the recording here if you want to take a minute for this. Okay, I'll go ahead and share from myself for this, but I mean, I mentioned before that I used to, think, oh, I'm better at writing than math. And I used to, be more doubtful of my math ability. I had to kind of overcome some of that. I think after college, when I decided I wanted to go to grad school and realized I had to take the GRE, and they actually cared about the math score, even though I was applying for, an English graduate program. And I, spend a lot of time studying, including for the math part, and I didn't do that badly. So, that would be one example. But really thinking about for number two, and you think about students, like I said, I teach writing, so English 111, 112, EDE courses, especially with some of my EDE students. Definitely common to hear students say, I just can't write, or I'm just not good at writing. So it's one reason I always talk about these ideas and attitudes right in that first week of class to try to dispel some of those myths that writing is some sort of inborn, innate talent or fixed ability that you either have or you don't. Reminding students that, it's like, whether it's writing or math or playing football or playing a musical instrument, these are all skill-based things that anyone can improve with time and effort. And people that are good at, say, football or basketball, they have spent lots of time practicing that in order to get good. And that's the same with writing. So I remind my students that. I also have had students, thinking I'm not good at I can't do public speaking, or I'm bad at test taking. So again, there's some of the things that I commonly hear where the fixed mindset attitudes pop up. And other times, and then I'd say for number two, it's always good if we can share our own experiences with our students. It also not only improves the sense of community and social presence, and lets our students see that we're human and we're flawed too, that their instructors are not perfect. We have been through struggles that we've had to overcome. So thinking of any time that you struggled with something and were able to improve with effort. I sometimes also use the example of technology, thinking I wasn't very good with computers or technology. And, sometimes my husband would get frustrated because I'd be frustrated too easily. Then he was better at technology. So I'd say, oh, can you come help me with this? And he said, try to teach me how to walk through my own troubleshooting. And after a few times on the phone with the IT help desk as well, I kind of started to think, what, I can do some of this basic troubleshooting. I don't have to call IT until after I try restarting the computer. It's not just something that I can't do. I also started realizing, what, I can look things up on YouTube and teach myself how to work this computer program, how to do this thing, how to use, different Google products like Google Docs, Google Forms. Especially with everything you can find online to teach yourself things. I've really learned to, to try harder, to put some time and effort into teaching myself stuff and realizing, okay, I can actually do this if I put a little time and effort. But, when it's easier sometimes just to have someone else do it for you, We want to encourage our students to overcome that, and also encourage them to reach out if they have questions, of course. Okay, so how does metacognition and reflection relate to growth mindset? And what is metacognition? Metacognition is the ability to plan, monitor, and assess your own understanding and performance. This reflective ability to be able to kind of honestly look at yourself, your skills, whatever it may be, and try to see where you are. This includes a critical awareness of one's own thinking and learning, and oneself as the thinker and learner. So if students can use metacognition to reflect on their own learning and their strengths and weaknesses as developing learners, they're going to be more likely to improve their learning and to succeed academically. So that's an important part to build, students' growth mindset attitudes, adding in, could be short, low stakes, not necessarily high stakes graded assignments, but, some low stakes assignments that are reflective. It could be discussion board assignments, but adding some metacognitive and reflective components where possible can help encourage students to, develop those metacognitive skills and to see where they can improve, and that's where they can focus their efforts. So that does help support, that growth mindset. I also linked to an article about metacognition here on this slide. I like this image I also sometimes show to students, to kind of show how metacognition is this sort of cyclical, recursive practice, that's a good idea to get in the habit of this, for all courses you're taking, but anything, not just your classes, but anything in life, any body of knowledge or skills that you want to improve, you can use a similar reflective process. So you might start by assessing whatever the task or assignment is. And this would be, if you've done this before, then you evaluate the strengths and weaknesses from, previous experiences. And when you approach a new task or assignment, you want to use your evaluation or reflection of those strengths and weaknesses to plan your approach the next time around. Then you're going to apply those strategies to do it again and again. Then you're going to reflect, assess the task, and so on. So the process of reflecting and developing metacognitive skills is that recursive cyclical process. So how do we encourage growth mindset among our students? What are some ways we can do it in class? Emphasizing the following, of course, that we've discussed, that abilities and intelligence are not fixed, but are changeable with time and effort. And again, emphasizing that this is supported with research. Learning isn't easy. It's also important to remind students that learning isn't just it shouldn't just come easily. Learning something new can be difficult, that struggling and making mistakes are a natural part of the learning process. And this also relates to that idea of the power of yet. Just because you don't know it yet doesn't mean you can't master it with some more time and effort. And again, telling your own stories about times that you have struggled to learn something and understand something can be helpful. It's also good to emphasize that feedback is an important part of the learning process, and to model, to kind of demonstrate not only how students can access feedback you give them, because some of our students, even, need some reminders of how to do that, but why it's important. And if you can build in some low stakes assignments that require feedback, whether it's peer review feedback or, encouraging students to use instructor feedback to improve as well. But that's a really important part of growth mindset too. Modeling for your students, demonstrating persistence and resilience. And again, you can include your own personal experiences and stories about yourself and people you know here, stories of struggle and growth. It's a good examples. Emphasizing feedback as a tool for growth, and praising effort and process as much as possible over inherent ability. And here you see, for those of you out there that are parents, there's some overlap here as well. And you want to, when you praise effort, it's also, if you can be specific about what aspect, I see you spent a lot of time on this, or if it's a process, you really did a great job of explaining this part clearly, or you did a great job of organizing the information. You can kind of get specific instead of just saying, great job. As if you can be specific and encouraging effort, that's always useful too. For assignments that encourage growth mindset, assignments and exams that would do this are those where students can improve their skills and show progress and improvement over time. These could include projects and papers with drafts and feedback and opportunities for revision. Now, some instructors give more or less opportunities for students to revise and improve their work. Some folks also, one thing I do is I've done this more over time. I've started offering more opportunities for my students to revise work, but I also require them to submit a reflection before they can revise and say resubmit a major essay assignment in my courses. And I also require that you do significant major revisions, and you can't just add a couple commas and then resubmit it for a new grade. That's not going to change your grade anyway. So encouraging that reflective component too. But anytime when you can allow this, whether it's feedback on drafts ahead of time before you grade the assignment, or whether it's, just giving the students the ability to revise and resubmit or retake a test after it's graded and you've given feedback, just any kind of opportunities for revision are always good. Having low stakes assignments early in the semester to help students get the hang of things and to build confidence as they work up to more major high stakes assignments. As I said, test retake opportunities. And for folks that, think it's not feasible to let, students retake lots of tests, maybe even giving all students an option of one test retake that they can choose, like a pass that they can choose to retake a certain test. And again, it's fine to require some sort of reflection in order to make use of that. So make sure the students, to build those metacognitive skills, write something about why they didn't do well, which questions they missed, and what they need to study, how they studied, and what they might need to do differently to study for a retake. I know some folks too that do that, and they might have an alternate version, so it wouldn't be the exact same test. It would cover the same material, but they might even have slight differences if you don't feel comfortable with students retaking the same test. Some courses allow students to submit portfolios of their work, either, counting as a major part of the grade, or, there's different types of portfolio submissions. Sometimes it's having students revise a body of work and reflect on it. Sometimes it's having students choose some of their best work and reflect on it. There's usually always some reflective component when we're talking about submitting portfolios, so that students can look back over what they've done, discuss the strengths and weaknesses, and possibly do some revisions to improve the work as well. And again, anytime you can add in reflective assignments, that can help boost metacognitive skills and promote growth mindset. So if you're watching the video and you want to pause it here to take some time to think about what types of assignments and activities can help students develop a growth mindset in your course, then you're welcome to think about this. So other ways to create opportunities for growth. So for example, we mentioned before revision opportunities and celebrating progress, improvements, and effort. If there's any way, now some folks sometimes even build in the degree of improvement can be part of a rubric. If you want to even build that in, that if there's evidence of revision over time, that students could get points for that. That's one way that you can celebrate improvement and effort. But there's lots of different ways you can do that. So you want to think about how can you do that in your own courses. Other questions could be, what specific strategies or language have you used to frame feedback? And examples of this, how this has impacted students' motivation and willingness to improve. Thinking about how you give feedback to encourage students, to emphasize the power of yet, that it's not, a failure. We've talked about, I know we discussed this too in the in-service, looking at, framing feedback using that sandwich method, finding something positive to focus on, putting some more constructive criticism in the middle and ending on a positive note. Again, thinking that everything you're doing with students is acknowledging that even if they're struggling with something, that you believe that they can get there, so that you want to encourage your students to develop that attitude, but you also have to have that attitude as well. You have to believe that your students can improve with the time and effort through feedback. And if you notice students really struggling, just reach out and encourage them to come and meet with you, where you can talk to them. Sometimes some students need that one-on-one encouragement to improve growth mindset as well. At the end of the slides here, I've included a few resources that not only are good for instructors, but these are resources you can share with students. And in addition, the QR code here, this over here can take you to more resources where I have these slides and additional resources that can be useful. And if you would, you could also, use this QR code to complete this survey. So I thank you for participating or for watching this video. And if you have any questions, you're also welcome to reach out through cedal@reynolds.edu or to me personally at jhitchcock@reynolds.edu.